The producer of Aliens is Gayle and Hurd. And Gayle, it strikes me that maybe women in the motion picture industry involved in fantasy and science fiction films are not quite as prominent as many of the men are. True or false?
I think that's not exactly true. Perhaps it's because of my orientation that I'm aware of it. But Rafaela de Laurentiis was the producer on Dune. Deborah Hill produced The Dead Zone.
That's true.
One of the Stephen King novels. Martha Shoemaker produced another of Stephen King's screenplays, Cat's Eye, and is currently the producer on Maximum Overdrive.
Now, and for the record, your own involvement with James Cameron, Terminator and Aliens, is actually only part of the story. You've been involved in other fantasies as well.
Right. When I worked for Roger Corman, I started out entirely on science fiction and horror films, which was his bread and butter.
What's your assessment generally of Battle Beyond the Stars from hindsight?
Let me see. I would have done it differently if I'd had the opportunity, but I was a hired gun, as it were, on that picture, and it was up to me basically not to interfere on the creative side.
Many people have different reactions to working with Roger Corman. What did you learn most from that experience?
I learned a little bit of everything from Roger. I think primarily I learned how to keep a film on time and on budget, and through extrapolating the experiences that I had working for him, I think I was able to add another element of my particular taste and my particular focus on characters, which wasn't so much something he concentrated on. Is
it more accident or design that you have been involved in so many fantasies up to now?
I really enjoy the genre.
Well, good for you. I was hoping you would say that. And having said that, could you elaborate a little bit? For example, in the genre, has there been ample room for fully developed female characters?
I think it's been rare. I think women, not only in the genre, but in other genres, tend to be either girlfriends or victims, and are ancillary to the male hero. And I think, hopefully with Aliens, we're establishing a new trend towards strong women characters who are the focus of the action and the story itself.
On the flip side of that, isn't it also true that, well, Halloween is a classic example of the woman being ultimately the only effective combatant to the monster?
I think
and certainly here.
Psychological studies will show you in reality that women tend to handle terrible crises better than men do. Maybe not across the board, maybe not every woman versus every man, but I think it certainly exists inside of us, strengths that we never realized we had.
Do you think there's something about women generally, at the risk of overgeneralizing, that especially responds to the horror genre? And I mean, you can go back hundreds of years to the Gothic novel and female audiences of readers to see them really developing and supporting the horror fiction across the board. At least it seems that way.
I think that women prefer that fantasy element, knowing that perhaps there are situations and there are characters that aren't in situations that they would find themselves in, so that they can extrapolate and enjoy the experience without feeling personally threatened.
Was there a special involvement or energy that you brought to the role of Sigourney Weaver here?
I think Sigourney's got everything to do with her character. I don't think she needed any help at all.
You're not going to take any credit for that?
No. Not for Sigourney.
Okay. However, I assume that was a direction that you and she were in perfect harmony about.
Absolutely. We talked about the project before she agreed to commit to do it. And she found that both Jim and I had the same perspective about developing her character and making it a character piece rather than just a straight action, science fiction, horror film in which the characters were secondary.
Now, if you were the mother of 9-year-old Carrie Henn, would you take her to see this film in its final version, or would you take any 9-year-old daughter?
I would take Carrie. Carrie's a very, very adult 9-year-old. She had no problems at all with any of the things that we did on the film. In fact, before Mrs. Henn allowed her to take on the role, she showed her Alien, which is a pretty terrifying piece of filmmaking. And Carrie was not frightened. Carrie did not have nightmares, and Carrie didn't jump, unlike probably the rest of us. And as a result of that, I don't think it was an unhealthy experience for her. I do think, though, that it has to be a parent's decision as to what kind of entertainment would have a negative effect on their kids, because kids tend to internalize some things and have a longer lasting effect as a result of seeing something that puts a child in jeopardy, which this film does.
Mm-hmm. It seems that even within the span of a few years, a generation of kids will be scared by one thing that within 5 years another generation will not be overmuch disturbed by. That's bizarre.
That is strange.
The audience that was terrified by aliens may need more to get that same high here.
I think that that society, as a society evolves, what terrifies us, what stimulates us, is changing all the time as well. And
tell us about Tech Noir. What a great name
thank you.
for a production company, and I gather that that's an endeavor that you are sharing with James Cameron.
Absolutely. We picked the name because it's very close to our hearts. It's the name of the nightclub that was shot up in Terminator.
I forgot that. Oh my God. Well, all right, fair enough.
And we thought it was also fairly representative of the kind of films that we've done, and hopefully the kind of films that we tend to continue to do, not to the exclusion of other genres and other focuses, but.
But you know what? I would think that, having seen Aliens now in its final version, you would say, where can I go after this? Is the only
Hawaii.
direction in a completely opposite direction? I mean, this is like, this is the summit somehow. What can we do next?
Well, I've got a project that doesn't involve Jim, that I'm going to be doing hopefully in the interim, and it's a very, very small picture, human drama that deals with apartheid in South Africa, not something perhaps that people would immediately presume that I would be doing, but I've got a multitude of interests, and that's certainly something that I'm quite concerned about and hope to educate the public about. And
well, you know, pictures like Killing Fields and Salvador, in their own respect, are horror films in many real ways, and I'm wondering if you see in the tragedy over there at least some of those elements coming into place.
I see things that, I see wrongs certainly that need to be righted, and I think that anything that you can do to reach a lot of people, to make them aware of what the situation is like for an individual as opposed to perhaps just what they see on the news, will enlighten them a great deal.
Chalk this one up against old tactless John here, but you seem pretty young to be where you are in the movie industry. May I ask how old you are?
I'm 30.
And with already that much experience behind you...
I really have to thank Roger Corman for that.
Wow. Okay, so to be 30 where you are, I assume that's the way it should be. That's the way it's tracking according to your own career chart. I mean, that's what you want? That's good?
I don't think I had a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. so it's good because I can roll with the punches, and I can feel like perhaps if I want to take some time off, I'm not jeopardizing that plan.
Well, I've talked to other producers like Lauren Schuler and some, and this seems to be a really good time for young women producers. We seem to have lots of problems with good roles for women in the movies, and yet we see more and more very able producers. Sometime is that going to connect up?
I certainly hope that that the role of women in filmmaking in general is improved as a result of the continued involvement of women.
And in the meantime, you're helping to scare the hell out of us in Aliens. Gayle Hurd is producer of that picture. And with Gayle from New York City for KCTV5, I'm John Tibbetts.